Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here today. I'm really grateful that Dylan and Allison asked me to come talk to you all about MiPOPS and what we do. I'm going to cover a lot of information, mainly as just sort of an overview of the different things that we do, but please feel free to jump in and ask questions. I don't want anything to be confusing. I'm just doing a really we sometimes do like half-day workshops that go over a lot of this in more detail. So I'm kind of just started trying to give an overview so everyone just has a good idea of who we are and what we do. And with that, I will start my presentation. Oh, yeah. Can everyone see that? Okay.
Yeah, it looks great.
Great. Yes, like Dylan said, I am Libby Hopfauf. I'm the executive director at MiPOPS, and I also work as the audiovisual archivist of the Seattle Municipal Archives. And I would just like to acknowledge that MiPOPS is located on the ancestral lands of the Coast Salish tribes, past and present, and honor with gratitude the waters and land itself, along with the peoples and cultures that have existed here since time immemorial and continue thriving here today. This acknowledgement does not take the place of authentic relationships with Indigenous communities, but serves as a first step in honoring the land we are on. So what is MiPOPS? MiPOPS, we both said now, is moving image preservation of Puget Sound. We started out just working with videotape, but we now work with audio as well. We're a nonprofit corporation that was formed in 2014 and began work in 2015 to help preserve cultural moving images and now audio by assisting local institutions with the conversion of analog video and audio recordings to digital formats according to archival best practices. We support videotape and audio tape digitization and preservation by heritage organizations with neither the resources nor expertise to address these at-risk materials. And just to give you, since we really work in a very visual medium, I'm going to play this quick video that explains more about what we do, but actually like shows you what we do. So with that, I will press play. As soon as videotape left the factory, it already started to break down. Information that is on the tapes is slowly dying, and if we don't preserve them, important historical content that's contained on them will be lost forever.
What is MiPOPS?
What is MiPOPS?
What is MiPOPS? MiPOPS stands for Moving Image Preservation of Puget Sound.
What MiPOPS does for the general public of the Pacific Northwest is provide access to digitized content.
Our mission is to raise awareness about the magnetic media crisis, the alarm that the Association of Moving Image Archivists sounded to sort of bring awareness to the urgency of digitizing videotape.
Audiovisual Archive in Australia has put a deadline of 2025 to say, if you don't have your magnetic material digitized by this time, you're screwed. They're figuring out the actual date, and it's right around the corner.
Within 20 to 30 years of the time it's created, it's disintegrating.
The magnetic media crisis is sometimes called a gathering storm because the deterioration of the actual analog videotapes and then the increasing obsolescence and rarity of the players that play them back.
So video is a little bit different from film in that video went through all these different iterations, all these different formats for consumer purposes, for broadcast purposes, whereas film, there were consumer formats, 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter, but the principle of film has stayed pretty consistent. And video requires all these different players.
A lot of the formats that we work with stopped being manufactured years ago. And so we have to make sure that we take good care of them and tune them up, clean them, because a lot of the parts and players are getting harder and harder to come by, and so are the people who actually work on them. They're a dying breed, if you will.
In some cases, people thought they were creating preservation copies by putting film onto videotape. In fact, that was not a great idea. Film is actually quite stable.
The thing about older media types like film and negatives is that they are stable. 30 years from now, you're going to be able to view them.
100-year-old nitrate film, in some cases, is still around and looks gorgeous. whereas video, for its manufacture, had a completely different purpose. It was more of a kind of democratizing format for shooting.
It was a lot cheaper than film, so not only were professionals using it, but also amateurs and just the average person was able to buy videotape and record.
There was plenty of access. You could watch your VHS tape of a film, but now that VHS tape needs a lot of help. We have to keep up. We can't just sort of settle back and say, okay, we're finished. Despite the fact that we're working with old materials that have their fixed content, the way we view that material, the way we store that material is going to just keep changing and evolving.
A lot of the time, videotape is capturing real people doing real things. That might sound personal and boring, but it really encompasses so much of Seattle and Seattle's history that it's valuable to the general public and great for them to be able to access it. The public is able to see files digitized at MiPOPS on Internet Archive, where we create collections for each group so that they can, based on that institution, go in and view the content on their personal computer. As soon as So at MiPOPS, our commitment to inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility is a fundamental part of our mission to preserve and provide access to the region's audiovisual heritage, recognizing the power of media archives to reflect and shape cultural narratives. And in response to the recent flurry of discriminatory executive orders, MiPOPS is deepening our effort to ensure that historically underrepresented voices and stories are preserved and made accessible for future generations. So what does MiPOPS do? So since 2015, when we began work, we've partnered with over 40 local archives, museums, historical societies, libraries, heritage organizations, as well as local artists and arts organizations to preserve videotape and audio tape in their collections. To date, we've helped facilitate the capture and preservation of over 8,000 videotapes containing over 12,000 hours of content. And this slide is showing the logos for some of the organizations that we've worked with over the years. So we guide organizations through the entire process of preservation from analog object to digital file. So we're different than like a normal vendor because education is our primary goal here, and we want to meet organizations where they're at. So we'll help them with identification, appraisal, decontamination, repairs, digitization, and then caring for the digital files that result from those captures, and make sure that all of those adhere to archival best practices without being restrictive to the needs or resources of the organizations we work with. The services that we provide include hands-on training, digitization of videotapes and audio tapes, needs-based long-term preservation. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Public access platform, like you saw, we use Internet Archive. We create documentation and resources that are available to our partners, but also are publicly available on our website so that anyone in the archival community or general public can use them. We participate in promotion and outreach to help organizations raise awareness about the amazing materials we've helped them preserve and make sure that people know that they're there and they can use them. We also provide consultations, educational workshops, and we support the development of open source tools and training for users. So the main service that we provide since we've started is hands-on training for the digitization process. And within our model, each institution provides a representative, either an employee or a volunteer, to be trained by MiPOPS in analog to digital transfers. That is capturing the content from physical tape into a digital file, which enables each organization to preserve and provide access to their moving, image, and audio materials, and further MiPOP's broader goal of education around magnetic media preservation. We feel this makes our model more sustainable as a growing number of archivists are empowered to care for their materials. Over the years, we've had to acknowledge that organizations that we work with also have limited capacity, in addition to storage space and resources for preservation. And in order to meet them where we are at, we don't always train people if they don't have time or the space to come in and learn, but we really do try to prioritize that. So for some of our members who we've already trained, we'll just provide preservation services for them. Like I mentioned, we contribute to open source tools as well as creating and maintaining our own digital and analog workflows. And we tailor each one to fit our different partners' needs and requirements that they might have at their organizations for how they store files or the formats that they use. But we do provide a lot of education and insight into like how best to select different formats and what will work best for them. We tailor all of our documentation to make sure that it addresses all learning styles and skill levels, and that's intuitive and efficient and effective. A tool, whether you're in the office being trained or later trying to use it for in-house projects. Our documentation is available online, and we hope that by doing this that we're contributing to the larger archival community and preservation as a whole. Like you saw in the video, we provide public access to digitized content through our official Internet Archives page. We do not create the metadata, that's created by the organizations that we work with, but we take care of uploading and maintaining the collection online. We are not an archive, so we don't collect any of our own records, but we do retain and maintain preservation copies for the organizations that we work with if they need it. Many of our partners are restricted by a lack of funding, and with that, it can often be difficult to get enough server space in order to properly store their preservation files. And video preservation files are huge and they take up a lot of space. So in order to encourage them and ensure that those files will last into the future, we provide LTO backups for those organizations in-house. In order to promote access to the videotape digitized and raise awareness about the importance of archival work, MiPOPS has hosted Moving History since 2016. It's a quarterly archival screening night that we host at the Northwest Film Forum. This is a great way to showcase all of the different materials that we've helped digitize. We usually pick a theme and center a screening around that or a specific collection, and then we bring in community engagement for the people who created or are featured in the footage to provide insight and context or just additional interesting information. On June 14th, we will have our next screening at the Northwest Film Forum in collaboration with Scarecrow Video. It'll be the 4th year in a row that we've presented the Queer Crow Archives, which is a celebration of LGBTQIA+ history in the Pacific Northwest. And that is thanks to funding from For Culture and Humanities Washington. We also provide training and workshops. For example, we teach AV 101 and AV 102, which is a step up, but they're both hands-on workshops. The first one's more of an overview of what you have and different formats, and the other one gets into more of nitty-gritty like repairs or different things that you can do in-house in order to prepare your materials for preservation or to advocate for them. We also co-host Home Libby Day with the King County Library System. This provides us an opportunity to work with the general public to help them digitize their materials. Both the Federal Way and the Bellevue branches have a makerspace that includes some digitizing equipment for commonly found media like cassette tapes and VHS. So we go in with them and help work with their patrons to digitize their videotapes. And then we also provide lectures to filmmaking and history classes at the University of Washington and Seattle University. So before I dive into some of the things we go over with organizations, does anyone have any questions? Yes.
I was just curious about, given your model that you are working to kind of train partners, in archivists, is there a list of, I know you said not all the partners like you have worked to train someone in those in their organizations. They're kind of like a list of which partners have gone through that training, just as like again additional resources for other organizations in the area.
Yeah, I mean, I have an internal list where I've tracked it, but that's a great idea. I've never thought of sharing it.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah, that's a great idea. I can pass that along with my slides so that everyone here can see that.
that'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions? All right, I'll keep going with it. So for some of you, this might be a repeat, but I'm again going to go over at a very high level just so you get an idea of the types of things that we go over with our partners. So identification is usually one of the very first things that we go over with them. Many times people have sent tapes to us that are not the format that was either listed in a catalog record that was created a really long time ago, or a lot of videotapes, honestly, and audio too, look very similar. And unless you know exactly what you're looking for, it can be difficult to know exactly what you have. But I'm going to give you some quick tips for that because that is really helpful in finding a vendor or deciding if you want to set up your own digitizing station, what types of players you need so that you can actually play back the materials that you have. Oh. So just a quick illustration, because I went over, or myself and Rachel and Anne went over the magnetic media crisis in the video. But I just wanted to show this illustration here because I think it's a really good example of what exactly the magnetic media crisis can affect. So as you can see, the reel that is on it's on my left. There's a bunch of magnetic material that is actually flaked off of the tape. And this is different from like if a paper rips or a piece of film is brittle and breaks where you can tape it back together. There's no way to take all of that magnetic material and put it back on the tape. So once it's off, it can't ever go back on, and tape is actively shedding and degrading, like we discussed earlier. So I just really want to illustrate that. However, there are a lot of great solutions to try to resolve some of these issues, but urgency is really important to keep in mind because the deadline that has been agreed upon by archivists and was just recently updated by an organization after Bayback Media in California is everyone has sort of agreed that we probably have until 2028 to 2032 until these tapes will no longer be playable, and they're definitely getting more difficult to work with. So just to go over some basics that I'll be talking about with these tapes. This is just a diagram of the different parts of the tape. So on the left, there's the shell. For the top part of the shell, there are little windows that you can see in and see the reels. And then on the front view of the tape, there's a recording tab. That's located in different spots for different tapes, but there are a lot of great identification resources out there that'll really get into that with you. The guard door or guard panel or cassette door is the back part of the tape that is lifted up when it's put into a deck so that it can play. And then the reel, for a videotape, reels are contained within the cassette. This is an illustration that's from a blog post I did for SAA, which is linked in the slides, just to talk about identification and make it easier, because sometimes it's not always clear what people are talking about. So the top view is on the left and the bottom view is on the right, and you can see that the reels are visible through the bottom of the tape. So identifying formats can, like I said, be really helpful, especially if you're trying to locate a vendor who can work with your materials. Most of them have a brand or say the name somewhere on the tape. One of the exceptions is Betamax, and Betamax later used that same Greek B for their Betacam for that format. But anything that is Betamax just has the B and doesn't always spell it out. And then here's some other examples. You can see that these different tapes, somewhere on them say what they are. So this, the one on the top on the right is a Betacam SP, and then below it there's a mini DV and a Video 8. And if you ever have any questions, there are lots of different resources out there, like I said, and they're linked in the slides. And then another thing that could be really helpful that vendors like to know is the media length. And those are all circled on the tapes that I have on this slide. And that can just be helpful for people to determine some brands and media links have specific problems or are known to be prone to certain issues. And then it'll also give a rough idea of how long a project might take if the maximum amount of content is on that tape. Sometimes it's also on the back of the tape, as you can see here on this slide. And there are over 40 different videotape formats. At MiPOPS, we can work with 20. There are fun, weird, interesting facts about pretty much every format that's out there. And I won't dive into the specifics, but there are some other really great resources. My favorite ones are these ones created by Ashley Bluer. They are illustrated guides to audio, film, and videotape, and they also are coloring books, which is super fun. And she put a lot of great fun facts about working with those tapes and when they were created and manufactured, and I highly recommend them. I find them very helpful. And this is just one more example of the different, this slide is out of order, I apologize. So this is a way better example of how some tapes can look exactly the same. So on the slide we have a Betamax, a Betacam SP, a digital Betacam, and an HD cam. And almost every single one of those will need to be played in a different player depending on what the player can do. There are some players that can do HD cam, digital Betacam, and Betacam SP because a lot of them are usually backwards compatible. However, HD cam wasn't really a very popular format. We've only really had a couple people bring it in. And so those players are harder to find, but as you can see on like the top of the little cassette door, it'll say exactly the type of tape it is, which again can be helpful information for you to tell a vendor or for you to figure out what type of equipment you need to be using. Excuse me, another really common one is mini DV and HDV. It was a very commonly used format, both by news gathering organizations and just the general public. In order for people to tell their own story, it was really small and compact and easy for people to carry around. But in the 2000s, HDV was invented, and it has a completely different recording and encoding method for the data track that's on these tapes. But sometimes it's hard to tell if you have a mini DV tape that has HDV on it or if it's just regular DV. And if you try to play an HDV tape in a just regular DV deck or player, it'll look like it's blank, which might make you think that, oh, I could toss this, but definitely just double check in an HDV. Some formats like Betacam, DV, and VHS had different record modes, and this just meant that you could the recording could be captured at a slower rate, which very much degrades the quality, and then it will play back at a slower rate. So on the same amount of tape, you're like adding, you're cramming a ton of information on there. Like my aunt used to make us like mix videotapes and send them to us with like 6 hours of movies and TV shows on them, and like the quality was not great, but it worked. And that's just to say that some tapes might only be like an hour and a half, but they might also be somewhere up to like 6 or 8 hours. So that's just a good thing to keep in mind. And you'll usually need to have a consumer deck to play those back, because that wasn't really used for like professional recording, which is why we had like 2 or 3 sets of like My Fair Lady or Titanic on VHS. All right, so inspection. So the risk factors for all audio and videotape are the format, so the quality and the manufacture date. So some tapes that are newer are actually at higher risk because they were created to be used by just the general consumer, which means that the quality isn't as high, so they're breaking down a little bit faster. But also on the flip side, tapes that are really old are also at risk because of their age and how long they've had to degrade and just been sitting around. And so then there's also deterioration and changes and damage to the materials that can depend a lot on storage conditions, especially damp or heat or any moisture that's in the air, or just being improperly handled or stored. And then there's the content. So historical value, a lot of especially with DV, that's pretty much always a unique recording because it wasn't used for distribution. And then there's types of deterioration. So there's physical, changes to the size or shape, chemical, changes to the structure of the material, or biological, which are usually, my coworker made this slide a while ago, and I just love that she said organic attacks. But that's usually referring to bugs, creepy crawlies, something that's like somehow gotten into the tape. I once found like a moth like rolled up inside a tape, which is kind of gross. And again, that'll all depend on storage conditions and handling. So there are many different types of contamination. I'm just going to go over a couple of really common ones. These are some examples of sticky shed syndrome, and that's a breakdown of the adhesive that holds that magnetic material onto the tape. So in the one slide I showed where it was flaking, the magnetic material was flaking off. That is where the binder has failed, but it can also absorb moisture, and then it ends up creating this like weird sticky, almost crystal-y looking substance, and that makes it so that the tape is sort of stuck to itself. It can be dehydrated to remove the moisture and then cleaned to remove the actual, I don't think they're crystals, but for lack of a better term, powder debris crystals. And then you can actually play back that tape. This is really common for U-matic and VHS tapes. And then there's also adhesive or contamination buildup. This, I'm very suspicious, has a lot to do not just with the breakdown of the binder, but also the adhesive that was used on different labels for tapes. A lot of they were not acid-free. Some of them now are very gunky and weird, and they seem to have like soaked into the tape. There's also different types of plastics that were used for different shells, and those have broken down in different ways. But these are just some examples of what that can look like. Mold is very common, especially if something was housed somewhere around moisture. Mold can also be removed through dehydrating. It's just a slightly different process. It does need to be cleaned. You need to have everything a lot more contained because you don't want those mold spores to go all over the place. And then there's shedding. These are just examples of tapes that had broken down to the point where they're in great condition, but as they're going through a deck, they're actively shedding their materials. The images that are on the right, that look like little curly cues and pieces of confetti, those are from a tape that had been, it might have been dropped or damaged somehow, but the way that the reel was sitting inside the tape, as it was playing, it was actively cutting off the bottom part of the tape as it went through the player. And then a really great example that my coworker told me about this is when Fleetwood Mac was recording the Rumors album, they were trying to make a copy of the tape, it was already actively shedding. And so and that was when it was brand new, the tape had come out of the manufacturer, they were trying to use it to record, but it was already actively shedding and degrading as they were trying to make a copy of it. There we go. So I'm just going to play this quick little video that just shows and you'll also hear some common noises that indicate that there are different things wrong with the tape. So this first one's normal. So So the reason why all of that, like going over all those things, is really important is sometimes contamination isn't immediately obvious. So you want to be really careful before you put a tape into a deck, because if you do and it is contaminated, things like this can happen where the tape gets all wound up on itself, or snaps, or breaks, or damages the player. A lot of players have mechanisms in place where if there is tension from the tape, like too much, like more than normal tension, it will stop and eject the tape, but that's not always the case, or sometimes that doesn't happen as fast as it should. Yeah, this tape was contaminated. It looked like it was fine, but then someone tried to play it, and this happened, and so it came to MiPOPS so that we could help fix it. So I mentioned baking to remove contamination. That's just a dehydration process. Some archives with lots of money have scientific ovens. We use a food dehydrator that we got for $150 off Amazon. It was highly recommended by several very picky audio people that I found online, and it's been working great for us. So tapes have to be taken out of their shells to be baked. So we remove them from their shells, label them, and then they bake at a temperature of between 125 to 130 degrees. The 130 is a lot more common, and that's been seen across audiovisual materials and across archives. People have been slowly increasing the bake time and temperature due to the breakdown increasing with tapes. So yeah, typically 125 or 130, and that we will bake tapes for 72 hours, and then we clean the cassette shell, we let the tape cool, and then we reassemble it and clean it. So these are some examples of our cleaning supplies and the cleaning machine that we use. This is a picture of my coworker Annalise using our cleaning machine. There are some really expensive, very nice cleaning machines, and for a while that was the only option out there. But recently, some people who are VHS enthusiasts have been making these 3D printed machines. You still need to watch it and baby it, but it's a lot better than what we used to do, which is manually clean tapes. And this is an example of that. For half-inch, we do manually clean them. So this is just an example of that. 1 inch or half-inch will has this weird buildup where it almost is like crusty dirt particles that you have to like really clean off in order to get any type of picture or sound. And this is just an example of what a tape can look like before and after baking. This is footage from the Seattle Art Museum. So you can see the one on the right is having a really hard time. It's not very clear. And then through baking and cleaning, the other one has a couple little artifacts in there, but the picture is quite clear. So it really can make it so that you can at least get a copy of the materials. For audio and video, sometimes cartridges need to be repaired, especially if they were dropped or damaged. And then the little pressure pad that's on audio cassettes will sometimes fall off, either because the adhesive failed or for a number of reasons, usually poor handling. But you can still buy kits to replace those, and you need to make sure that there is a pressure pad intact on any cassette before you play it back, because it really helps hold the tape in place. Otherwise it kind of will sound like really kind of off. Tears and disconnected tape are very common as well, but there are still repair supplies out there, and we provide documentation on cleaning, baking, and repairing audio and video tapes. These are some stills from a training video that we're hoping will be released soon, because a tear in a tape is one of the easier fixes that you can do, and it's pretty cheap to get the supplies and be able to do that in-house if needed. So storage. So physically storing the tapes, you don't want to drop them, you don't want them to be around dust, you don't want to have a magnet anywhere near them. That can actually erase the tape. There shouldn't be any moisture or any heat. You don't want to store tapes flat, and you don't want to touch them. the actual inside of the tape. Sorry, you can touch the tapes. And then ideal storage is a tape is inside a case. Even if it's a paper case, that's better than no case at all, because that'll give it a little extra layer of protection. You'll want to make sure that the recording is disabled and that the tape is either all the way rewound or all the way fast forwarded. And that just helps, whenever a tape is stopped and stored for a long time, that adds pressure to the tape in certain spots that will result in a damage or like odd artifact. So if it's right at the beginning or right at the end, there's usually no content there, so that's a little safer bet than if you store it like in the middle of the tape. And you want to have them vertical. So they can be stored like this or like this, but not flat. And you can remember it because V for video, V for vertical, and F for film, F for flat. So appraisal. Like I said, for each type of tape, there's a different type of recording mechanism. I'm not sure what the thought process was there, but some of them are fun. Like U-matic has this little red button that pops out of the back of it that you can use for art projects if you're silly like me. And VHS has this little tab that gets popped off, and then some of them have sliders so that you can turn the recording on or off. But you just want to make sure that that is disabled. Most of the equipment that we have does not have the ability to actually record, so most of the tapes are fairly like safe in that regard, but it's just a really good best practice. And then you'll want to, once you've confirmed that the tapes are okay to play back, you'll want to actually view them, because what's written on a tape is not always what's actually on a tape. And sometimes you have duplicates, or someone recorded over it with Star Trek is a very common one, or a Mariners game. And it's just good to know so that you're not sending something out and paying for it when you didn't actually like want that tape to be digitized. And we do have people come in and walk them through appraisal and help them with that, so to make sure that they're actually digitizing what they want. And then you'll want to make, if you do have duplicates, you'll want to select the highest quality format. So if you have a VHS or a DVD, but you have a different format that it was copied from, you're really going to want to go with the closest to the original, because that's going to be the highest quality. And then you'll want to make sure that you regularly clean your decks, even if your tapes aren't contaminated or dirty. And then we also have a tutorial for that helps out. And then, okay, so for digitizing, so tapes have to play back in real time. So if you have a 6-hour budget committee hearing from the Seattle City Council, it has to play back for 6 hours. So digitizing can be time consuming, but we try to make the process as simple as possible, and then you don't have to like sit there and watch all 6 hours of the meeting, but it's good to go in and check back on it. These are some pictures of the MiPOPS office. We have our computers set up here, and some of the different decks that we work with, and also a picture of our old dehydrator. And then this is an example of the equipment that we use for audio analog to digital transfer. It's a little bit more straightforward than videotape. It requires less equipment, but it's the most important thing is just to make sure that you do all of the adjustments correctly, and get everything set up with the best possible connections and cables. And then we use open source tools for embedding metadata and for transfer. For video, it gets a little more complicated. You have your decks and your cables, and then they all have to be connected to a time-based controller or digital processing synchronizer, and that helps stabilize the video and allows you to make adjustments to make sure that the video looks and sounds the way that it should. And then those are all hooked up to a video card, and that is hooked up to a computer. And with Apple discontinuing support for FireWire, that's going to make a lot of these processes complicated, because they all heavily rely on that type of a connection. We use as many open source tools as possible for every part of the process, but we do have to use some that are not, that are proprietary. And then these are some examples of the different types of adjustments that you need to make for the color levels, the darks, the light, and just some different this is a page out of our manual that just shows how to calibrate each one of those things to make sure that you're getting the proper signal and that everything is within broadcast range. So, like how it was meant to be played on a tube television. And then we use an open source tool called vRecord to capture tapes, and it provides a really intuitive viewing so that you can monitor the tape but also make adjustments beforehand. And I know I'm running short on time. We also, for DV, again, a little more simple, but also, again, with Apple getting rid of that FireWire support, we're really quarantining computers in the sense that they will not connect to the internet and they will not be updated. Because sometimes Mac OS will sneaky squirrel style update your computer when you don't want it to. But for DV, you don't have to adjust any of the audio and video. It's all right there on the tape. It does have a data signal though, and you do want to capture that because it has a lot of important archival information like time code and date and lots of different information about how the video was captured, which can be really helpful for catalog records. And then we worked with a group out of New York to create this DV Rescue capture software because there wasn't really any software that still supported capturing the data track from DV. And it's really helpful because it also provides you information about the capture as you're digitizing. And then for our preservation formats, for analog, we advocate for using a Matryoshka wrapper and FFV1 version 3 with a 10-bit bitrate, and this is lossless compression. So we encourage Matryoshka because it's non-proprietary, so it's not beholden to Mac or to Windows. And then FFV1 version 3 is lossless compression, which takes a file and makes it about a third of the size as uncompressed video. So as a comparison, an hour of video is usually about 33 oh wow, that's a typo. 33 gigabytes, not terabytes, I promise. And then for uncompressed video, which for a while was the only thing Library of Congress advocated for, that's about 100 gigabytes, again, not terabytes, per hour. And then for DV, DV is its own format. It is 8 bits, so it does take up a little bit less space. But we're not downgrading it. It was just recorded at 8-bit, and there's no way to make it not 8-bit. And then for audio, we recommend PCM, broadcast wave, 96 kilohertz, and 24-bit. Oh, and this is an example of those preservation sizes without the typo. So just to give you an idea of how much larger moving image files are compared to like a photo or audio or a document. And then I'll just skim past these really quick, and I will send out these slides. There are a bunch of great free open source tools that you can use to perform quality control on audio and video materials. An amazing one is the AV Artifact Atlas. A lot of different quality control tools will show you different ways that you can use, or the AV Artifact Atlas will show you examples of how to use different tools to identify different artifacts and determine if it's just damage and that's how the tape is, or if it's something that you could resolve by capturing again and changing settings or cleaning or making some adjustments to your capture. Quality control tools is also another great one. It's really helpful for analog video. DV Rescue has several different analytic tools that are really great for identifying artifacts there. And file care, just a reminder that disks and flash drives are not stable long term, so you'll want to make sure you transfer those as well. And then you want to make sure that you have 3 copies, if you can, 3 copies on at least 2 different, in at least 2 different places, and then one hopefully is in a different physical location. We're really short on time. So does anyone have any questions? I don't want to not leave time for that.
I just want to remind too, because I know there's lots of really great detail in here that I'm sure that we'll send out the recording as well as the slides to this. And then Libby, I know you did say a lot of these resources are also available through MiPOPS as well, if like your manual, it sounded like potentially as well, or at least some different digitization resources.
Yeah, definitely. And here I'll just skip ahead to that really quick. So on the slides, like they are available on our website, but I also included anything that I mentioned in here um, with hyperlinks, all the different tools and resources. Um, so yeah, yes to both. But yeah, does anyone have any other questions? I apologize for cutting it close on time.
Not at all. This is phenomenal. I feel like again, just a really great um, overview. And I know that with over four, you said over 40 different, that's just video types, right? And then where that's not even getting into audio. And so there are just so many specialized, so much specialized equipment or ways to approach each individual uh, asset. So again, this has been really helpful to condense everything into one webinar. Um,
Yeah.
and then Libby, I know, so you're based in Seattle, but MiPOPS does work beyond Seattle, King County, correct? So what is the best way if people are, I know you do most of your work kind of locally. What's the best way if people are interested in kind of finding out more or following up with some of these other workshops or trainings that you had mentioned? What's the best way to get in touch about those opportunities?
Yeah. So if you just email me, my email's on this slide. It's just libby@mepops.org, and just let me know any questions that you have, or if you'd like, to learn anything more about anything else. I can help you find what you're looking for and let you know what education opportunities are coming up, either through us or through other organizations. But yeah, and any question at all, please reach out.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm just going to take one more pause and just take a look through any other questions for Libby, think from the presentation or otherwise. All right. Well, I just want to again say thank you, Libby. I really appreciate your time, and I will just say, as we've been talking about digitizing archival materials, photos, and documents, and at our Saving Local History Roadshow workshops, we've been having questions about, hey, what about our audiovisual materials? So, again, just really appreciate everything that you and MePops does, because it's really filling a need. That many of our organizations have. So just thank you.
Yeah.
Um, we will, again, we'll send out the recording here and the presentation. Look for that here in the next couple days, I'll just say. And again, I just want to say thank you, Libby, and thank you all for joining us for the webinar today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great to be here. Thank everyone for coming.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you. Take care. Have a good rest of your day. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. You too.